No, not yet. Just hold on tight. Kim did make it better.
Chris, you may just want to make a little announcement if you're working through a couple of technical difficulties. Chris, if you tell them to just join normally, the meeting ID is 88. I'll read the meeting ID.
Bear with me here, Robert. In order for him to join normally, he would just use it.
Just join the meeting. Zoom, click on the meeting.
All right, we're going to try one more thing, Robert. If you can just go to the Zoom website and say join meeting, we're going to try it that way.
You joined before us. Why don't you
He's my age. He doesn't remember what he was about.
I'll put John right next to step on and put you on speakerphone real quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she called me. Is it right? It should copy. What's it? It should copy for meeting ID. So let us know. Yeah, that's what it should be. You're on there. Step here and there. We got you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll just do a quick test and see if you can hear us and everything else. Thank you, sir. All right. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical difficulties getting started. But if everyone can hear me, just raise your hand. All right. So we should be good. With that, I'll turn it over to Chairman McLaughlin.
Okay, we'll have a roll call, call to order. September 9th, Rockbridge County Planning Commission. Ms. Hennis is here. Ms. Hines is here. Mr. Lucas is here.
Here.
Mr. Whitmore is here, and I am here. Okay, this meeting is being held by electronic means pursuant to continuity of government ordinance adopted by the Board of Supervisors on May 26, 2020, due to the threats posed by the COVID-19 pandemic to the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and in accordance with the recommendations, guidelines, and requirements of federal, state, and local authorities. Commission members will be participating remotely and in person. Staff will be presenting as normal in the Board of Supervisors meeting room at 150 South Main Street, Lexington. And while the room will be open to the public due to the size of the meeting room and social distancing requirements, no more than 30 attendees will be allowed into the room at one time. For the Governor of Commonwealth of Virginia Executive Order number 63, all persons over the age of 10 that do not have a precluding medical conditions are asked to wear a face covering. We will hold citizen comment near the beginning of the meeting, and we'll do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment remotely. Number one, you can join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line of your browser. Secondly, you can join by telephone. Dial into one of the following numbers. They're listed on the county website. First one is 1-301-715-8592. Next, 1-312-626-6799. Next, 1-669-900-6833. Another number, 1-253-215-8782. And finally, 1-346-248-7799. The webinar ID is 884-332-1671. The password is 499294. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel. Click with the available, which is also available on the county website. At this time, we'll proceed with the meeting. First of all, we'll take citizen comments. I'll remind everyone that in addition to participating by Zoom or telephone, written citizen comments have been solicited for receipt by way of email, U.S. mail, and the drop box located at the front entrance to the county administration building and by way of email. We'll take the comments in the following order. The names and magisterial district of citizens that have submitted comments received by way of email, letter, Dropbox will be read aloud and made part of the minutes of this meeting. The Planning Commission members have received all comments that have been submitted. For in-person participants, if any, the moderator will ask if there are any participants present to comment. If there are, they will be invited to approach the podium and address the commission. For Zoom participants, first, participants who do not have a microphone on their computer can click on the Q&A button and submit their comment by way of typing. The moderator will read the comment aloud during public comment. When typing a comment, please begin with your name and magisterial district. Secondly, participants with microphone on their computer can click on Raise Hand button, and the moderator will unmute participants one at a time to receive a verbal comment. For phone participants, citizens participating by phone will also be allowed to speak. The moderator and commission can only see your phone number on our screen. If you would like to make a citizen comment by way of phone line, please push *9 now, and by pressing +9, the moderator will see that you have raised your hand and will go down to the list of numbers and unmute each line one at a time. Prior to unmuting a line, the moderator will announce the last 3 numbers of your phone number. You will then hear a recording indicating your phone is now unmuted. At that point, you can indicate whether or not you wish to comment. If stating yes, you will be asked to state your name and magisterial district for the record. In any case, citizen comments will follow the same rules as normal. Please state your name and magisterial districts, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, this time I will open the citizen comment period for anything not on tonight's agenda. Please note that the commission is interested in hearing your comments and that staff has done their best to make the public comment possible during this challenging time. I would ask that if your comments have been previously stated, that you refrain from reiterating the same comments. Mr. Sladen, is anyone physically present to speak?
Anyone like to speak on anything not on the agenda? Not seeing any, no, sir.
Okay, if not, we'll now welcome comments from public by electronic means. It's important to note that this is a live recorded meeting and all comments will be taken under consideration by the commission. Citizens participating by phone will be allowed to speak. Moderator and commission can only see your phone number on our screen, so the moderator will go down the list of numbers and unmute each line one at a time. Prior to unmuting the line, the moderator will announce the last 3 digits of your phone number. You will then hear a recording indicating your phone is now unmuted, and at that point, you can indicate whether or not you wish to comment. Stating yes, you'll be asked to state your name and magisterial district for the record. Are there any Zoom verbals?
Not see any hands raised.
Are there any Zoom texts?
I don't see
Any phone numbers? Okay, with no further comments, the citizen comment period is now closed and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And that would be for the approval of the August 12th, 2020 meeting minutes. Okay, Brandy, I don't know if you were able to hear me earlier. I did have one on page 2, last paragraph on the page, 3rd sentence. It starts with the concerns. The C should be lowercase, and then but the sentence is awkward. The concerns include safety concerns on railroad crossing. I think that needs to be rethought. Say the concerns include safety of the railroad crossing. I don't think that's second concerns. That would be redundant. That's the only thing that stood out to me. I know Ms.
I
Ennis
have a
has something.
couple. Yeah, one of them is on page 4, second full paragraph. Ms. Hannah stated there were only 2 commission members last month, and she would like to hear the thoughts of the 2 members are. And I think it needs to be the 2 members that were not present last meeting. Those are the people that I was soliciting for information to get an opinion. And then a couple paragraphs down, it says, the very end of it says, but the plan is not complete at this time because the concerns of the neighbors need, and I think it needs to say to be addressed. On page 5 in the first paragraph, it says had started to, and it needs to be convened, not convened. That's the last one I have.
Mr. Whitmore, do you have anything?
additional.
Okay. Ms. Hines, Mr. Lucas, anything? All right, call for the vote.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I've got those corrections. Thank you.
I move that we accept the minutes with the corrections as presented.
Motion Finn, second.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved with the various corrections. Okay, now going on to the Board of Supervisors report.
As far as the 3 boards that we report on, the Board of Supervisors, no action was taken on planning and zoning related issues. The Tourism Corridor Overlay Board did not hold a meeting in August, and the Board of Zoning Appeals did meet on August 19th, 2020. The BZA was on appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. The BZA affirmed the zoning administrator's decision that on March 9th, 2020, American Hardwoods Industry, LLC, Augusta Lumber located 567 Fredericksburg Road, sawmill was in violation of a special exception permit containing the dust control. That originally was scheduled, you may note that it was a March violation that was originally scheduled to be done at the BZA level in April, and that was postponed by agreement due to the pandemic.
Thank you. Okay, now we will proceed on with the scheduled public hearings. We'll follow the same process as we did in the citizen comment period. Any citizens present will be allowed to speak. Secondly, staff will read any written comments that have been received, and we will then take comments by way of Zoom webinar, and finally, we will take comments by way of phone participants. As we go to that, going to the James River Depot, the Arson Campground public hearing, application for special exception for campgrounds in the agriculture and general uses A2 district. At this point, David, I think you have a statement.
Should have this memorized by now. I hereby abstain from all matters, discussions, or voting related to the application for a special exception permit by the Orson family, and my disclosure statement required under the Conflict of Interest Act is on file with the Secretary of the Planning Commission.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present?
Well, not quite yet. We do a couple presentations. I do a very brief, I do a presentation, and then I turn it over to the Orson family.
Sorry, jumped the gun.
All right, everyone should be able to see the shared screen there. This is a James River Depot Orson Campground application for special exception for a campground in the Agricultural and General Use District A2. As far as the area zoning map, we have two different zoning designations in this area. The white on the zoning area here is the agricultural and general use. That's the A2 zoning district. The green to the south is the conservation zone. That's the C1 district. In this case, the C1 zone is the Jefferson National Forest. The Orson tracts are outlined in magenta there in the middle of the map. Area zoning map continued. The area under consideration is located within Zone AE, area within the 100-year flood hazard zone with base flood elevations determined, and that's determined by FEMA. Wendy Orson has made an application for a special exception to operate a campground in the agricultural and general use districts, again A2. The parcels that are under review are outlined in magenta. The parcels are owned by the Orson family. Tax map 113-11-1 is owned by Charles and Karen Orson. Tax map number 113-11-2 is owned by Russell and Laura Orson. And the third tax map number 113-11-3 is owned by Michael and Wendy Orson. The total area under consideration this evening is 19.26 per tax records. Per section 603.03-15 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations, campgrounds, private seasonal campgrounds are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. At the August 12th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended denial of the special exception application. Primary concerns included safety concerns with the existing private railroad crossing and the adverse impacts to the adjacent landowners. On August 13th, 2020, the applicant the application was withdrawn. On August 18th, 2020, the applicant resubmitted a new application. The withdrawal and the resubmittal starts the process over, hence the Planning Commission having a public hearing this evening. The application includes a revised site plan and narrative detailing what modifications to the plan and what site work has been performed since the last meeting. Current draft conditions, the uses by special exception are uses by special exception because they've been determined to have a potential of a larger impact to the area than the permitted uses of the zoning district. Special exception conditions are crafted to attempt to address the impacts from the special uses that are under review. Staff has prepared draft conditions. These are the same draft conditions presented at the August Planning Commission meeting with the addition of the revised plan date that was, of course, included in your package. So with that, I think it'd be beneficial to read them. Number one, substantial compliance with the concept plan prepared by Perkins and Orson dated June 17th, 2020, and revised on August 31st, 2020. Number two, campground is limited to primitive camp only. No motorhomes, tow behind campers, parentheses, such as pop-up campers, toy haulers, teardrop trailers, stand-up trailers and travel trailers, etc., or RVs permitted. Number three, all users are required to be notified and acknowledge that the campground is within the 100-year special flood hazard area. Campground owner shall utilize the Alert Rockbridge system and will be provide instructions upon check-in about accessing the Alert Rockbridge system. Number 4, campground owners are responsible to ensure that the railroad crossing / stop signage is not obstructed. Number 5, campground owners are responsible for installing and maintaining signage identifying the eastern, and it actually says western property limits of the campground, and that's an error on my part, apologize. That would be the western property bound. That would be revised to identifying, let me read it over. Number 5, campground owners are responsible for installing and maintaining signage identifying western limits of the campground. Number 6, the campground will be addressed and installed E911 signage. And finally, number 7, approval contingent on final VDOT, health department approvals, and any required CSX approvals. That concludes staff's portion of the presentation. I would like to turn over to Mr. Russell Orson and his family to review modifications to the plan and the site work that has been done since the August Planning Commission meeting. And I do have the pictures up here. I can use the site plan.
Okay,
You want to start with site plan?
sure.
Okay. Try to new share. Bear with me here. I'm gonna attempt to pull up the site plan. The best way to get it. Sorry about this.
That's all right. We don't, I don't need it.
Okay, if you want to start talking, I can pull it up. One second.
So, since, we were last here and the plan was denied and you had said, it just seems like it's not quite right there. So could you guys please make some changes? So that's what we attempted. I met with Chris and took several hours of his time. So we reviewed the plan. We put in the plan that the boundary lines would be visible, so that's a part of the plan we've submitted, that there'll be the no trespassing signs between us and the LLC. Then Chris had asked if we could please make the campsites closer to the field. So when Rusty edited it in August, that's what he did. He pulled them up a little bit further away from the river to be sure that they're not in the initial floodplain further from the river, which Chris asked me to do.
This is
And so you'll see now that it's labeled that the no trespassing signs are there. That's a part of the application, and we moved them up. And now, most importantly, I thought is that we reduced the ask from 8 sites to 5. So it would reduce, traffic a little bit more, because that seemed to be a concern of, would people be coming and going and meet accidentally? So we reduced it to 5. While I was with Chris, I was then aware that I could read all of the emails that had come in, so I read the concerns of the neighbors. So then we have tried to address each of these issues in the last month. We met with the LLC property owners and had a very productive meeting and came up with signage that was agreeable to both parties. We have agreed on what a gate will look like and how it will be paid for, and are in agreement on that. And then we also put in about 30 tons of crusher run. So I think, Melissa, you went down there and saw, and I took some pictures and sent them to Chris, and I think he sent them to each of you. And I tried to help show the before and after, and that it's a much more gradual, so you wouldn't be speeding up there now. I think it's a much more gentle approach. On the riverside, we raised it about 2 feet. So that's been addressed. I don't have my glasses on to see everything I was going to tell you. Oh, the other thing that we did on our own is, David and Sammy didn't ask for this, but one of my suggestions was we bought one of those 24-inch convex mirrors, and we're going to install that, so that we're just putting one up to start and see if that works, and then we might need to buy a second one, but Chris was kind enough not to put that in the drafting, but that's what we're doing between the groups to make sure that it's a safer crossing. Let's see. I guess I just wanted to also mention, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but when I was looking through all of the paperwork, Nathan Ramsey, when Sam was still here, Nathan drove out to this. It was one of the last things Sam had him do, or that Nathan went and did. And he was like, if RVs are going to come, they need to put in pressure run. So that gave me confidence that, okay, well, if the guy in charge of safety thinks with pressure run RVs can come in, I'm going to put down pressure run and hope that you guys think it's okay for cars to come. So I just felt that buoyed me up to think that there was a way that we can make this safe and the crossing more presentable to you guys. I think that that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So again, thanks for driving out again and for your time and for considering this application again.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't drive, so.
Okay. Well, and that's why I sent some pictures. So
I
do you need
appreciate
to see them again or want me to
I
tell
saw
you
the
about
pictures.
them
They were-
or, okay.
it. I saw all the pictures. Thank
Okay. Yeah. No problem.
you. Okay, now we'll open, this is the time to open up to
Yes, sir.
the public hearing. Is there anybody present would like to speak? If not, we'll go on to the comments from the computer and phone. This time I'll ask the staff if there are any citizens that would like to make comments from Zoom.
There are no question and answers, no open questions, and while we have 2 attendees, there are no hands raised.
So are there any phones?
Only 2 attendees, and no, they're not. We do not have any hands raised.
Okay, so if there are no other public comments, so then we'll go ahead and the public hearing is now closed. Bring it back to the committee for questions and everything. So anybody have any questions for Larson's?
I guess my main question is if the neighbors are, I mean, I see Sammy is up there. I mean, you guys all are in agreement, they are supporting this now.
Do you have a limit to the number of campers? What is, in a really busy weekend, how many folks will be?
If we're renting it out to unknown people, then it's a limit to 6 people per site.
6 people per site.
And right.
Okay.
And then if it's family and friends, I'm not making that limit.
Right, okay. But so potentially you could have 30 people down there and that's it.
Right.
Okay. And do you have adequate liability insurance and all that kind of stuff? Good.
Yeah.
Good. Is there a limit to the number of vehicles that can come in?
It is. I'm allowed to also put that on HipCamp, and I say 2 vehicles per site.
Okay.
They can ask me. I've had people say we're coming from opposite locations. Is it okay if there's a 3rd vehicle?
Okay.
So the HipCamp site really allows a lot of communication with me and the people that are coming. So it's nice.
So you get to have some oversight as to number of vehicles coming in.
Absolutely. If they can have a dog, if the dog's on leash, or what are they allowed to do? We found them to be very respectful and wanting to treat it well.
Good. You got my other question.
So do you all like go down there regularly when people are down there just to
We
see
do,
what's
yep.
happening? And
So our daughter loves to go down and greet people. So she's kind of it's either Mike, myself, or our daughter, and we go down and we greet the people. If they get in really late at night, then I usually tell them I'll come down the next morning and I greet them then. There's been a few people I've missed. They've come in late, they've left early the next morning, and I've not seen them. So I can't say that I've met every single person, but I've met 98% of them. mostly Virginians, Charlottesville, Virginia Beach, DC area, and because of COVID, all trying to get outside.
So when I went out there, coming from the road into the site, it's still, you can't see anybody that's on the other side. And I thought that very thing, I said to Pat, actually, I said, you know what, they could just put a big,
Mirror.
disc mirror up there so that I could see if somebody was on the other side.
Right.
So I thought that was great because we were thinking about that. My biggest concerns were the neighbors, obviously, they had some valid concerns, and this safety issue of going over this, but it looks like, I'm very impressed. You kind of addressed everything that we've asked you to do. I don't think we could ask for more than that, so I appreciate all that effort.
Other comments, Ms. Hines, Mr. Lucas?
Were you able to come up with a check-in process, where they're not going to disturb the neighbor across the street? I guess with the new, once you receive your 911 address, that will help alleviate the headache of them going up that driveway.
Yes, I think that's the hope. And I did reach out to that neighbor as well and extended an olive branch, and she's not here tonight, so I think it was a successful olive branch, and we'll continue, I gave her my phone number and asked her to call me if there are problems, and I think there'll be better communication, and I think having an address will help tremendously, because I used to say turn past mailbox 1018, but
yeah,
that was frustrating for her, and I get it. I don't, there's no big huge landmarker down there besides her mailbox. So I understand that, and I understand her frustration, and I think we've addressed it.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Lucas, you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
Don't forget to close.
Excuse me?
Don't forget to close public hearing.
I think it,
Did you?
I think I closed the public hearing.
You did.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure I did.
sorry, missed it.
Okay, I think you all have done a great job addressing the concerns, and I feel better, a lot better, particularly on the safety and with the relationship with the neighbors. Does anybody want to make a motion?
One thing is, Chris, your conditions that you have don't read like what we have here on our proposed motions.
Do we need to look at that, the CSX?
Because I was reading them along with them, and it was not exact, same intent, but different language in some of them. So.
All right, I was reading directly off, so I might just, let me go over. Substantial compliance with substantial compliance with concept plan prepared by Perkins and Norrison dated June 17, 2020, and revised on August 31st, 2020. Number 2, campground is limited to primitive tent camping only. No motorhomes, tow-behind campers, such as pop-up campers, toy haulers, teardrop trailers, stand-up trailers, traveler trailers, etc., or RVs permitted. Number 3, all users are required to be notified that the campground is within the 100-year special flood hazard area. Campground owners shall utilize Alert Rockbridge notification system and will provide instructions upon check-in about accessing the Alert Rockbridge system. The campground owners are responsible for installing and maintaining signage identifying, and this is a change from what y'all have, the western limits of the campground. Number 5, the campground will be addressed and installed E911 signage. Number 6, the campground owners are responsible for ensuring that the railroad crossing stop sign is not obstructed. And number 7, contingent upon final VDOT, Health Department approvals, and any requirements approval required from CSX Railroad. I will note some of the condition, or not, some of the discussions aren't part of this, as far as number of people, number of cars, meeting someone on site, those type of things are obviously not part of the current conditions.
Right.
Just have one other question. If we approve this special permit, if the land sold to another owner out of the family, whatever, would this go with it?
Absolutely, yes.
That makes me wonder if some of those things should be in there as far as the limits of the number of people, because somebody may be not as responsible as the Orsons may someday own it.
Comments about that?
I agree. We need to do that, Melissa.
Okay.
The odds are vanishingly small, but we certainly don't want them.
Right, right.
So we'll use your current conditions of saying, limit to, as far as this would not include your family, obviously. Right, so it would be.
Well, importantly, it was unknown people to us, but there's groups that go down there, there's church groups that go down there, and we don't want to limit the church groups that we already know. It's not even a money thing, it's church groups and
Like the Quaker.
the
kids
Quaker
and the-
camp and stuff like that. We don't want to run into numbers problem because we've let them do it before, and we'd like to continue to let them do it. So the
Are they-
6,
are they-
even though it's hard to put in a motion, perhaps the 6 is for people that we don't know. Okay, you're limited to 6, but the church groups and what that we know.
Are the church groups paying groups?
Yeah.
Okay, what if we had limit to 6 for
Paying,
paying
fine,
customers?
yeah.
That'd be fine. You won't know who's paying us, and that's fine.
Yeah, we also have to, always have to take into consideration the enforceability of the conditions and the practicality of enforcing those conditions.
Right.
But we're
So-
fine with the condition, and
Sure.
certainly if it passed out of our family, we would understand that perhaps that would be enforced. So, okay.
It's not the fact that Russ and Wendy and them aren't going to do the right thing now. It's what's going to happen 50 years down the road.
Right.
That's what we got to be at. Vicky, do you have any suggestions on how we can word that and make it doable?
Well, I think you can put a condition to limit to 6 guests, limit to 6 paying guests per site.
Could you possibly do it where it would be 6 overnight guests, overnight paying guests? Because I know that, so if I was camping and I'm a local, but I know that I may have family members that might come and visit for the day, but then they would go home. But there may be, there's 5 in my family, they might have a friend or something stay. So, you know, they would have to go home. Could you say something like 6 paying overnight? Do something like that. So that way it's eliminating, well, it's not really eliminating the church group though, if they decide to stay over.
But they're not.
Group, and it gives something to hang your hat on in the future if you
Right.
need to. So I think it works.
I think that limit to 6 paying guests per campsite.
And do we want to say 3 vehicles that give enough wiggle room for the ours right now? And we certainly limit somebody down the road per campsite.
That'd be fine.
I mean, I don't mind. It's, yeah, I mean, I can.
And
help
again,
them.
it's.
My hat's off to the person that enforces that, but
Right.
it's
Yeah,
fine
that's-
with us.
Well, but I can imagine someone driving down there and there's, 40 cars and there's, whatever people causing a big ruckus, and then you can say, wait a minute, where are your 3 and where are your,
Yep.
It would be a challenge, Mr. Orris is right, it'd be a challenging job to enforce, but then I know the intent of it, but then you say 6 paying customers, limited to 6 paying customers. So what happens when they have 6 paying customers and 10 non-paying customers spending overnight? I think what you're trying to do is limit the total number of people,
Right.
not necessarily paying customers versus non-paying versus guests of paying customers. I'm not trying to confuse it, I'm just trying to get something that's practical and enforceable. And we've talked about that recently with the, other conditions associated with it. What's the practicality? What's the enforceability of the ordinance? I'm not saying it's not,
I get it.
there's
but
some
it's
merit
right,
to it. I
so
certainly,
somebody could have 4 people staying overnight, then they could invite 20 people to come down and hang out. And,
Yes.
Bring their cars and whatever.
It's 16 acres of parking there. So
Yeah.
It's also a hayfield. You don't want too many cars in the hayfield.
Yeah, Robert, I've already figured I can get 800 cars on that.
you probably can, Russ.
Thank you, Robert.
Do me a favor, when you draw that up, please email it to me so I can see it.
Well, I guess the sticky wicket here is the
Enforceability.
enforceability, and also, do we need to add that language? Certainly not for the arsons, but
Right. Well, and then, I mean, just to throw another sticky wicket, like, if families have young children, I don't charge them if the kids are, under preschool, and so then
Right.
does that become an adult that's there with their mom that's paying, and, I don't know, I just try to use good judgment, and I know you want the next person to have good judgment.
I don't think that it's going to be an issue with y'all running it right now, and I believe there'll be some policing on y'all's end. I believe that. But like I say, what I'm looking at is future and protecting landowners in the future that may be around you across the road over side of you. And if it gets out of hand now, if there's no limit on vehicles or people, then there's no teeth. Nobody can come in and go, hey, you got too many cars here. You got too many people here. You're making too much noise. You're tearing up. You're disturbing people across the road. If it were to get out of hand, and I'm not thinking y'all will let it get that way, but I can see it happening. When maybe y'all aren't in the picture.
So if you limit the number of vehicles, aren't you, by limiting the number of vehicles, in essence limiting the number of people? I mean, maybe that solves the problem, because if you only say 3 vehicles per site, it's going to limit it to some degree right there. It's not like they can bring 40 people in 3 cars.
But also, as far as in the future, we have 3 separate lots. So the probability of all 3 of us wanting to sell to another individual would kind of crush this thing anyway, because right now we have it incorporated on 3 lots. So if I wanted to sell,
Your 6 acres.
or if Russ wanted to sell his 6 acres, it kind of blows this thing
Right.
out of the water anyway.
Yeah,
So,
and it is limited to Brimble camping too, so.
yeah. So,
I think if we're concerned with the numbers of people or numbers of vehicles, I think you just have to find a good medium of what that number is, as far as enforceability. I mean, we obviously do it with wedding events, and we do it, just with wedding events. We do number of attendees and in some cases, number of cars.
Well, the other thing is we're talking about number of cars. When you do have those nonprofits, churches, whatever they're using it, they're going to have a lot more than 3 cars per, because they're coming down. So that's a problem. If we
Was
put
that
it in there.
picture of the Quakers?
It's the Boy Scouts.
So that picture that you saw was the Boy Scouts.
And if I recall correctly, there was one letter of support that had 80 some odd people down there at one time. And I don't know exactly what the number is, but I want to say it was 84. That again was an email of support that I passed along to y'all during the first application. So if you are concerned about that for the future use or future years use, I would recommend the number of vehicles or number of cars of median, and that I don't think it's enforceable to say paying customers, because then you're down there
No, who paid?
counting chickens.
That picture you saw was the Boy Scouts, and we didn't charge them, and so then you put a number on it, and then it is a sticky wicket. I just asked Vicki if we could sunset it so that when it's sold, it didn't carry forward. And there's been some state court stuff that's gone back and forth on that, and Vicki believes that currently that would be unenforceable to sunset it. But we'd be happy with that. We're not going to sell, but if we did, we'd be happy if it got extinguished then. If Vicki could come out with a way to extinguish it with us, that would be fine.
Well, and couldn't you all do that when you sold it in the deed? I mean, just put a restriction
We
in
could,
the deed.
but I don't know that we want to put conditions about a deed.
No, but I'm just saying,
Oh,
for you
yeah,
guys,
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way you.
Yeah, but if there was a way to sunset it with the property ownership, we'd be happy to do that, because we're not angling to.
well, providing that ownership is outside of the family. Because
Right.
obviously
Sure.
parents are older, so.
Yeah,
If we take possession of their property, I don't want it to end.
right.
So it sounds like, I just found the email, it sounds like it was the church group. It says, as the pastor who's writing this, and it said with 82 men camping. It was the number of this particular church group that came in one time. I mean, it could be more, it could be less, obviously. But we have done that with wedding event venues. I mean, and that depends on the size of it. Obviously, with one wedding event venue is relatively small acreage. I think we limited it to 150 people, if I recall correctly. There's other circumstances like the Boy Scouts itself. We did not put a number on it because they had 3,000 to 4,000 acres. And so it does, for special exceptions are crafted for each special exception. With this, we're dealing with 19 and some odd acres total. So if we wanted to put something, and it could be only be something pertaining to overnight camping, you know, is 100 overnight camping acceptable for now and the future? I mean, that's what this conversation is about. You know, what is the acceptable number? Does it need to be in here is the first one we have to do, and then what is the acceptable number?
If we put a number in there now, we pull a number out the hat, 50, 70, 90, 100, 120, and 2 years, 5 years down the road, they can come back and go, hey, we really need to up our numbers. Can we do that? That's doable.
Yeah,
correct?
Yes, it would be the
Okay.
same process we're going through now,
Right.
but absolutely, special exception conditions can be amended. In fact,
So-
the next one we're doing is a special exception amendment.
So we go in there and we pull a number out the hat, we throw it out, and and we make it something that's livable and doable now for the Orsons. And if it's too low in the future, try to make it, you know, decent number now. If it's too low in the future, or they see it is, we can come back and raise it.
What if we put the number of 100 on it? Is that every weekend we're gonna have 100 guests? We're gonna be okay with that? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, right now there is not a limit. So right now you could have 100 plus guests every weekend. Right now it's not addressed.
Orson, what would be an upper limit that would be acceptable?
Well, is it, I mean, so are we bound to this with friends and family and a church group, or are you just want to be bound to this with the pay?
Well, we decided that we can't distinguish between paying and
So then I
unpaying.
guess-
We couldn't police it. So
I
it
mean,
have to
maybe
be whatever that
100.
upper number is.
I'd say 100, but I
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I can assure you there's not gonna be 100 people there every weekend.
Right.
We cut hay down there and we need the hay, so.
Right.
I don't want 100 people there.
Right.
But that would allow you to have your church groups
The
and
Boy
like the
Scouts
Boy
and the
Scouts and
Quakers could
that
come,
sort of thing.
and there could
And
be
that
a
would-
wedding down there or something. I mean,
But-
I don't want to.
No, stop that.
Yeah,
Stop
I
that.
mean,
No,
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 we really
no,
don't want
no.
to do that.
Our daughter might want to elope down there.
Yeah,
Well, let's be honest about this. We're sitting here and we're looking at, let's put 100 on it. That gives you a lot of leeway. And I don't really think you're going to have somebody sitting there counting people as they come out in cars unless it's happening every weekend. If it's happening every weekend, we need to come back and address it anyway and see what's going on. I have one other question. I know you got a landowner on either end of that property. And if you're sitting there and you've got camp or people parked all over that, I just want to make sure that both the adjoining landowners are going to have a good clear right of way, and something's been worked out with those guys so it doesn't affect them in any way. And if that's been something that you've discussed with the adjoining landowners.
The easement, there is a recorded easement for access to both of those, and that will remain clear. The owner to the east came and spoke in favor of this. She's very enthusiastically in favor of it, and I don't foresee a problem. And the location of the easement is kind of up at the railroad end, so I don't foresee ever, and we would never allow that access to be blocked. That would be both personally and legally needed to stay open.
Okay. But that was just one, I figured it was, but I just wanted to throw it out there and ask. I certainly don't have a problem with going in at 80 or 100 people limit on this if the other planning commissions members are.
Well, and I think
And if
that
it's
means we take out the limit on the vehicles, because if there's 100 people there, they can't all get there in 18 cars or 15 cars. Whatever.
And I think the Orsons can, with the campers, can limit that just to their own personal policy but then gives you the leeway to do your family events and other special events. Or not special events, but family gatherings. And if you're like McLaughlin's 100 is no problem. We can do that easily.
So is the consensus of the commission that's 100?
As a round number right now, that's one I'm leaning towards.
Limit to 100 people at any given.
So I have the condition campground, it would be the interpretation, the campground total, not campsites are limited to 100 people, but the campground total is limited to 100 people.
So that in the future, if that ever happened, then I would assume there would be some deed restrictions if you all ever decided you could put that in at time of sale, if that ever happened.
So another condition that I think is definitely worthwhile discussing, and Lee, you had mentioned it prior to me reading the ones out loud, is currently approval is contingent on final VDOT and health department approvals and any requirements, approvals required, any requirements, approvals from CSX Railroad. And so what that means is currently the staff at Office of Community Development would not be able to sign off on the business license until it was approved by VDOT, Health Department, and CSX Railroad. So I want to be sure, I think that's going to come up in the future, so I want to make sure the Planning Commission knows what we're doing here tonight.
I don't agree with that, and it would be untenable to say that. We already have a VDOT permit. We already have a health department permit. CSX in a billion years is not going to write a letter saying, we love what you're doing. That it's not what they do. They're an adjoining owner to us. They're not a review authority. They're not government. They're not anything. They're an adjoining owner. And putting a condition on this that we have to go to our adjoining owner to write a letter to you guys to approve what we're doing is to me is a non-starter.
And that's exactly
we have an
why I wanted-
easement over an adjoining property owner, and we do not want to give them veto rights over what we do.
And that's exactly why I wanted to
That's
have
why I
this
wanted to bring
discussion.
that up.
So to follow up on that conversation, part of the Planning Commission's role in special exception process is to address public safety associated with the proposed use. So with that, the Planning Commission has 4 options. One, the Planning Commission has the ability to recommend the conditions associated with the railroad crossing itself that address safety concerns. These improvements could have to be made in agreement or with authorization from CSX Railroad. The Planning Commission could require that approval of the special exception permit be contingent on amended designation from CSX. The amended designation from CSX for the proposed use could address safety concerns associated with the railroad crossing. Number 3, the Planning Commission has the ability to recommend approval without setting conditions associated with the safety concerns of the railroad crossing. And number 4, the Planning Commission can recommend denial of the application based on the safety concerns of the railroad. So those are sort of your 4 options moving forward.
The track has a section leader that is in charge of a section of track, and our local section leader, I don't recall his name, Mike met with him, and we asked if for their permission, it's on their property to extend our culvert so that trailing wheels of our trailers, we're not allowed trailers, but of our hay equipment and whatnot, would be better accommodated. And then we also asked permission to place the gravel to change the geometry, and we got approval from them to do that. They're aware that we improved the entrance. We got their approval to do that. It's on their property. We met them. We're good on that. But to get something in writing from them, we will never get it.
And of course, they have stated that, what they say verbatim is to continue the use or expand upon the use of the existing crossing for commercial camping or any other use beyond private farming. The users must submit a request to CSX for review. So that's
through VDOT, the classification through VDOT has not changed. So we have not changed the classification of our entrance at all.
That's exactly correct. It was a low volume commercial entrance. It continues to be a low volume commercial entrance. We have not changed that for the state, and our adjoining property owners should not insert themselves into that.
So the low volume, it's not changing now that it's become a commercial property basically.
It was already, if you're serving 5 lots or more, or really 3 lots or more, it has to be a low volume commercial entrance for VDOT. It has to be.
So
So that's
is there
what
a
it
number
was.
of cars that they
It's
going
10
to-
vehicle trips per lot, so it's less than 50 is a low volume, average daily trips. We're not gonna get 50 average daily trips in there, ever.
And VDOT takes into consideration as a railroad.
Correct, and VDOT came out and we gotten our permit from them for exactly what we're doing.
What I don't have, we've had this conversation, so just for full disclosure, I'm not sure what implications VDOT's approval will have or would have if it's required on the CSX approval. I don't know if there's apples and apples. I don't know if CSX will say, hey, thanks for sharing that information, that what VDOT did, we require this. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing up, because I think it's going to be brought up in a board level under the current conditions, and I want y'all to know what the current conditions are and respond accordingly.
The railroad's like a country, they can send armed men if they want, but they're our adjoining property owner, and so they can have their way with us legally or not. That's between us and them.
Yeah, that's a civil issue.
That's right.
So if they feel there's a problem, whatever, then they can deal with you on that directly at that
Right,
time.
they do. Believe me, the railroad gets their way.
I don't particularly want to make it a part of this condition just because it is a civil issue between two adjoining landowners. I think you'll address the safety issues of that personally, me speaking. The signage is there, change the geometry of it, you put in a mirror up, maybe two.
That was one question we don't have that in here, that they're gonna put the mirror up or that there's gonna be one. To me, that's huge because that's how you make sure you can see who's on the
Well, it
other
just came
side,
yesterday.
which was big. Yes, I'm just trying
If
to
they put it
get,
as a condition.
if that's something we need
That's
to
fine.
put down in
Right.
here. Yeah,
Okay.
I got it. So,
Well, when Chris and I talked about it, I mean, I was just kind of going on what's enforceable. And
Yeah.
Chris was like, so if it gets shot out or something,
When it
I
gets
guess I
shot.
just would want him to,
that's what
like, I don't know how things go. Like, do they call and they say, hey, your mirror is broken, can you fix it? Like, and we can. I just don't want conditions that that would like shut us down the next day. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how this works.
So generally speaking, how it would work, let's say we do have a condition on, and we talked about several different conditions tonight. We talked about several different conditions that are enforceable and the practicality of them. So if you said that if it's important for the planning commission to have a mirror there, my recommendation would just show the location of the mirror on the plan for the next board of supervisors meeting. Just instruct the Orsons to show that on the plan. And then you're going to have substantial compliance with site plan prepared by Perkins and Orson dated June 17, 2020, revised on August 31st, 2020, and then September X 2020. And though that would take care of the mirror, showing the mirror on a revised site plan. As far as the zoning violation, how it would go down, let's say the mirror did get shot out the week into it, 2 weeks into it, someone would notify me saying, hey, this is in violation of special exception permit, the mirror is not there. I would write the Orson family a letter and generally speaking, give them 30 days to correct it, but we did talk about the concern of vandalism, and not vandalism once, but lo and behold, it started happening on a weekly basis. And we get into the middle of it. And that was a concern, that is a concern, same concern as other enforceability.
I think.
But if you do think it's important to have that mirror there, my suggestion would just be showed on
Part
the
of the
site.
revised site plan, and I think your gate's gonna take a lot of that vandalism. I would hope.
Well, the mirror
Would
is
be on
on the
the-
outside of the gate.
Oh.
That's why I was a little concerned.
Okay.
I mean, I think the mirror will be fine. I don't, you just don't know. It's a pretty rural road and, I mean, they've
How
knocked
many
over our
people go by
mailbox
there?
4 times and they sold our street sign 5, so, I don't know. That's why I was like, ugh. It made me nervous to put it as a condition. Like, if you run into our street sign now, you're gonna total your car, but they tried. I don't know. It's just, 18-year-old boys in Rockbridge County. I don't know.
It's girls.
No.
It's girls.
Mr. Chairman, someone on the Zoom participant, I believe, who has indicated they'd like to make a comment. I know the public hearing is closed, but
I don't have a problem with somebody making a comment. So is that permissible?
It's up to you, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
I'd say let's hear from everybody.
She didn't raise her hand, she just left me a comment, so there she raised her hand. And I will talk. Okay,
Ms. Upchurch, the chair is allowing you to speak after the public hearing. Can you hear us?
I can, yes, thank you.
All right. You have the floor.
Thank you. I was just asking, it seems like there's a lot of specific details that are still getting hashed out. And I was wondering if you were going to be able to allow for public input into those specific numbers, into the cars and people, since it is something that seems to be a conversation piece for this discussion here.
And would you like to comment on?
Well, you know, I think it's appreciate the time to speak. You know, I hear the comments of 100 cars aren't going to be there every night, 100 people aren't going to be there every night. But, you know, if there's any kind of specific restrictions, it just seems like there's a little bit more dialogue that needs to occur to kind of nail this down, as opposed to just some dialogue and back and forth here. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would follow up with that as we're actually making it more restrictive than what was originally proposed in the current in the draft conditions that were associated with it. We're not making it, we're obviously this discussion is making it more restrictive than what it was
Right.
pertaining to the number of people.
There was no number.
There was no number associated with it. And
That
I
is
think
correct.
they were trying to make those restrictions based on future use and not intended use at this point.
Back to the mirror. If we're gonna put a require a mirror to be put up, it's going to have to be up and maintained. As far as I'm concerned, that's a safety issue on that crossing. So if God forbid the 18-year-old boys from Rockbridge ride by and bust it every weekend, it's still going to have to be put up and maintained just for safety. That's what it's about. I don't like that crossing. I personally do not like that crossing with people riding across it going to a campground. Even with 30 ton of stone, it looked like 2 wheelbarrow loads there. And I know you put a bunch in there, but it's still not a good crossing to see it when you're coming up on it without a mirror. So got to be up and maintained, in my opinion.
And that certainly could be addressed by a note. You know, in my opinion, it's still that Mr. Lucas's comment could certainly be addressed with the revised site plan. And Rusty, if you disagree, let me know.
Nope, I got it. I agree with you.
Well, I think the CSX issue is really between two landowners. I don't.
I had already marked it out on my conditions because I thought that needed to be dealt with between those two entities.
Okay,
We're at 100 people and how many cars?
I think we just limited to 100 people, and that kind of limits the cars.
Well, not necessarily. Everybody can come in their own car.
And that would.
Okay.
It's just for consistency's sake, we have in the past, and I'm going by memory here. I think in wedding event venues is really the only time I think that we've gotten into the number of people, and I could verify, well, I can't verify it tonight because I didn't know we're getting the discussion, but generally speaking, I think it's the number of people's or number of cars. It's not number of people and number of cars.
Okay.
And obviously with Robert's comment, your total number of cars could not exceed 100. I mean, with that being said, I mean, that'd be a far-fetched situation that everyone brings their own car, but you would be limited to 100 cars, obviously, the math.
And that will handle 100 cars.
I like what you're saying, Chris, because you can sit there and you can force people to carpool a little bit and knock down a number of vehicles that will be going across that crossover. And that also affects the lady across the road and some of the other landowners around, or could, and bring some negative impacts for the Orsons in the campground if they want to start, or somebody, one of the neighbors wants to start getting upset about it.
For the number of people.
That's what I can.
Would number of cars say 50 cars
That'd be the greatest, buddy.
and not worry about the number of
Pay
people?
out the number of people. He said it's one or the other, and that makes sense. But you do 50 cars, you can put 4 people in every car, and now you got 200 people. So
We don't want that many people down there.
No, I know you.
you know,
we're
the next
gonna-
person may.
And can I ask a question? Are we talking per day for the minutes? Like 100 people per day, 50 cars per day?
No, at one time.
At one time.
I guess that's what I want clarification on for the minutes. Is that per day?
No, that would be at one time.
At one time, because that would,
Okay.
you could have people coming in and out.
Okay.
Right. Per day.
So we put 50 8-passenger vans in there. There you go, Russ. That eliminates your 800 car parking or whatever it was you had earlier.
Versus,
So Chris, can we not say 50 cars at one time, but no more than 100 people?
Yep, we can.
I mean,
Yeah,
does that
and I
make
think-
sense? I mean, I'm just.
I mean, it's, again,
Yep.
this is not going to affect the Orisons right now, but again, we're looking down the road. 50 cars and not more than 100 people. Vicki, does that work?
I think we could.
Yes, that's an objective number. I think that'll work.
All right.
What is that mirror called? What's the proper term for mirror?
A convex
Convex.
outdoor driveway mirror is what ours is called.
Outdoor target.
All right, so if it's acceptable to you, I'll read the conditions as I have them.
So, well, before
Just
you read
the
them for
initial.
the 4th time or 5th time.
Yeah.
So can we make the motion and then say, and those?
Sure thing.
To read them all. Okay. So you want me to read the motion and then you read the conditions?
Yes.
Okay. So I make a motion that the planning commission recommends to the board of supervisors that the special exception permit for operation of a primitive campground in the agricultural and general uses district A2 for LDR section 603:03-15 on 3 parcels of land located along the James River off of Gilmore's Mill Road and identified as tax map 113-11-1 owned by Charles R. and Karen O. Orison. Tax map number 113-11-2 owned by Russell H. and Laura K. Orison. And tax map number 113-11-3 owned by Michael C. and Wendy C. Orison in the Natural Bridge Magisterial District be approved with the following conditions.
Number 1, substantial compliance with the concept plan prepared by Perkins and Orison dated June 17, 2020 and revised on August 31st, 2020 with the revision to the plan showing the location of a convex driveway mirror to be maintained. Number 2, and then stop me if I get these wrong. Number 2, campground is limited to primitive camp only. I won't bore you with the details. That was not changed. Number 3 was not changed. All users are required to be notified that campground is within the 100-year floodplain hazard area. It goes on to say the Rockbridge system, again, that was not changed. Number 4, campground owners are responsible for installing and maintaining signage identifying the western limits of the campground. Number 5 was not changed. That's the campground will be addressed and installed 911 signage. Number 6 was not changed. It says the campground owners are responsible for ensuring that the railroad crossing stop sign is not obstructed. Number 7 is changed. It currently says approval contingent on final VDOT and health department approvals. And number 8 is the campground is limited to 50 vehicles at one time, not to exceed 100 people.
Good. That's the end of my motion.
A motion, any second? Okay, we got a second. And Ms. Hines, call for the vote, all in favor,
Yeah.
and motion carries. Move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you for the discussion very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
I thought you were.
On the agenda is Robert Young's Auto and Truck Incorporated, Inc.
Yes. Yes, and I have a very brief presentation, then I'll turn it over to the applicants. With that, I'd like to share my screen, but I need to get it up here. Bear with me here. All right. Ironically enough, the last time we were chatting about it, can the conditions be changed? And the answer, of course, was yes. Conditions can be changed. It goes through the same exact public hearing process as we do to set the actual conditions. With that, we have an application from Mr. Robert Young Auto Towing and Truck Incorporated, application for special exception for automobile holding yard in the general business district B1 area zoning map here. The white to the south is the agricultural and general use district, the A2 district. The red on the map, which is located on the property here, is the general business district. And I apologize, I still have some leftover language from the last presentation. I do apologize about that. Mr. Robert Young's Auto Towing and Incorporated has made an application for a special exception permit to relocate an existing holding yard in the general business zoning district. The property is located at 4811 South Lee Highway and is further identified as tax map number 106-33-D12. The purpose of the application is to relocate the existing holding yard from the left-hand side of the building to the right-hand side of the building. We have been working with another gentleman with plans to lease and reopen as a convenience store. The relocation of the holding yard is needed to improve the flow of traffic, customer flow of traffic. And so just to review it briefly, north oriented. So this is left side or north side of the building, the existing holding yard. If you can see my arrow here, the existing holding yard is here. The current plan is to move the location to approximately this location over here. As you can see with a gas pump here, there are plans to redo the gas pump, new gas canopy, new gas pump, the whole 9 yards. With that, this impedes the flow of traffic. The current fence layout impedes the flow of traffic. The original special exception permit was approved by the Board of Supervisors on May 29th, 2018. Some of the conditions that were associated with the 2018 special exception permit have been addressed and they are no longer needed. I'd like to, again, uses by special exception are uses by special exception because they've been determined to have a potential larger impact on the area than the permitted uses in the zoning district. Special exception conditions are crafted to attempt to address the impacts from the special uses that are under review. Staff has prepared the draft conditions. The draft conditions are as follows. Number 1, substantial compliance with the zoning plan, including the continued maintenance of landscaping in healthy condition, and including maintenance of the fence screening in presentable condition as shown on the Robert Young yard storage prepared by DEG Design and Services dated June 22nd, 2020 and attached hereon incorporated. The fence may be increased to 10 feet in height, and that would be from the average grade to the peak of the roof. There's been some recent discoveries on some topography issues, and we think the flexibility in that fence height is imperative to address those topography issues and further screen. So it's staff's recommendation that the applicant has the ability to increase the fence up to 10 feet in height. Currently, the current plan shows 8-foot fence, I believe. Compliance with all regulations of Rockbridge County Code Section 23-101B and Section 23-101 for holding yards and including implementation of the screening plan incorporated in Robert Young's yard storage within 90 days. Grading work must be completed so all areas of the holding yard are not visible from the public rights of ways and adjoining properties. Number 3, all erosion and sediment work to be stabilized within 7 days of final grading or temporary stabilization within 14 days if work is dormant. Number 4, erosion and sediment control measures are in place prior to the commencement of work. And number 5, VDOT review and approval for new grading work that may, start over. Number 5, VDOT review and approval for new grading work that may impact drainage on the VDOT right-of-way. And so I'd like to, these are slightly different than the draft conditions that were in your package, and I apologize about that. When I had on Monday, I had an opportunity to go on the southern part of the county to inspect the other property, the work they've done. And I've been by this site 2,000 times in my life. I remember going into Ferguson's, but the original application, I was thinking that this was a flatter area on the right-hand side. So when we drove by, slowed down, looked at it a little bit more closely, and there is a fairly, I won't say, it's a fairly average grade going up. So the concern is the ability to screen the vehicles with that increase in elevation from the corridor, or from Route 11, from the public right-of-way. Another thing we realized is, because it's my understanding that because this is under 10,000 square feet in disturbed area, that the applicant would not be required to get erosion and sediment control permit. So we thought it would be important. I met with the erosion and sediment control administrator this morning, and obviously number 3 and number 4 and number 5 were developed in conversation with him. Those are the issues that a normal erosion and sediment control process would take place. And so we thought it would be important to implement those into the special exception, so that oversight is there. That includes staff's portion of the presentation. I'd like to turn it over to, I believe, Mr. Robert Young to review additional details of the project, or review anything that staff may have missed. Thank you.
How y'all doing tonight? I don't have a lot to say, but just, we're gonna make it look good. I think if maybe putting the fence up, and then we grade it off, all we gotta do is take a little bit off of one side and put it on the other side to make it level. And if we put the fence up a little bit higher, then when the grade come out, we would just put mulch and stuff on it right there. So it would actually hide better, because if you get up a little bit, you can't see. Then you got an 8 or 10 foot fence. You can't see. If you're above it, it's harder to screen it.
That all makes sense, just to bring one side down, bring the other side up.
Right.
And then,
It's not a big difference in them when we're talking about. It's foot and a half off this side and added to this side.
Who's going in? Who's going in?
Exxon.
Okay. Good.
That'll help the area.
Yeah, it'll look a lot better.
And hopefully they'll expand, and we'll have to move one day.
that exchange needs. Anybody else have any questions for?
So
We do have a public.
yeah, just a question. So you're expanding the width quite a bit and the depth of it. Is there a limit on the amount of vehicles you can store at one time, or is it just with a lot of hold?
I'm not prepared to answer that. I think there is a limit of 30. Is that correct, Ms. Huffman? Do you know off the top of your head?
If I remember correctly, I think
That sounds right.
that sounds like.
That sounds right, but I'd have to look it up.
We're not gonna have that many.
If you give me just a few minutes.
We're not gonna have that many there anyway. So. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
Huh?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was finished.
If you're gonna look that up, then why don't we want to open up to a public hearing?
Certainly.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Young. If we have questions for you, we'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, sit down.
Yes, thank you. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. If there's anyone physically present who would like to speak.
There's no one physical present. I think he's in support. That's Mr. Young's son, I believe, correct? Yeah, so there's no one physically present to speak.
And there's no one digitally present.
There's
No one digitally present. Okay, at this time, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to Planning Commission.
Chris, the other conditions that we had when we approved it before are still in place. These are just some additional changes.
No, these would all the other conditions, and I had included those in your package, I believe, would be null and void. after these. I mean, some of them have been addressed. Some of them were not addressed, but are being replaced by these conditions.
This doesn't have anything in here about a limit on the number of cars.
And no, ma'am, the other one did not either.
I thought we just said it.
It's in county code,
Okay,
which is what I'm looking up right now.
so it doesn't have to be a condition.
Wrecked abandoned vehicle holding yard means a parcel or lot upon which not more than 30 abandoned or wrecked vehicles are stored.
Okay, that's county code.
The lot is almost exact same size with one another.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if I was clear on that, I'm sorry.
That's what I surmised from what the previous discussion was. Okay, are there any other comments? Anybody have comments?
The neighboring land is farm, Showalters. Y'all discussed it with them, or they have any issues with it? I mean, I guess they go behind your property the whole way, but
Yeah, the hill drops off on the other side, so they can't see from the other side, only from the south side. And, we're screened completely with a closed fence.
I actually think this is gonna look better than what's there based on what I see.
So of course, we do certified mail to all the direct land adjoiners and adjoiners across the street. And we have not heard any comments from those landowners.
I don't think anything could look as bad as across the street.
Yeah, we've had several inquiries about the land across the street. We have, and I've reached out to that landowner as well.
I see this as being an improvement on what's there right now, especially opening a convenience store up on that interchange would definitely be good. Provide a needed, it's something that could be needed in the area for the local folks along with, and it'll definitely improve it. So I'm all in on it.
The one thing that I failed to mention in the conditions is TCO approval. The modifications do have to be approved by the TCO board. With that being said, we can take both projects through the TCO board concurrently. When I say both projects, I mean the improvements to the holding yard, the fence, the improvements to the fence, and that type of thing, and then also the plans for the Exxon station itself, and that can be done. That can run concurrently, so that would not have delay any time frames associated with approvals.
Thank you.
Ready?
Call for motion.
I make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the amended special exception permit for relocation of a wrecked abandoned vehicle holding yard in the general business district B1 at 4811 South Lee Highway and identified as tax map number 106-33-D12 in the Natural Bridge Magisterial District be approved with the following conditions. 1, substantial compliance with the zoning plan, including continued maintenance of landscaping in healthy condition, and including maintenance of the fence screening in presentable condition, as shown on the Robert Young Yard Storage prepared by DEG Design and Services dated June 22, 2020, and attached hereto as attachment 1 and incorporated herein. Fence may be increased to 10 feet in height, raised to top of fence. 2, compliance with all regulations of Rockbridge County Code Section 23-101B and Section 23-103 for holding yards, and specifically including implementation of the screening plan incorporated in the Robert Young Yard Storage within 90 days. Grading works must be completed so that all areas of holding yard are not visible to the public right of way and adjoining properties. Number 3, all erosion and sediment work to be stabilized within 7 days of final grading or temporary stabilization within 14 days of work is dormant. 4, erosion and sediment control measures in place prior to the commencement of the work. 5, VDOT review and approval for new grading work that may impact drainage on the road right of way. And do we want to add 6, TCO approval?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I have a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Youngs.
Thank you, y'all have a good night.
Hey, y'all.
Y'all have a good patience for all y'all do.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Number 7, the electronic meeting policy for planning commission.
Yes, several of y'all have asked about the electronic meeting policy, which is obviously different than what we're working under now, which is the continuation of government ordinance. Continuity, I always get that wrong, continuity of government ordinance. With that being said, in your package, we provided the Board of Supervisors electronic meeting policy. And in fact, Ms. Huffman was able to send out the modified electronic meetings policy that would be for the Planning Commission. That was emailed out. It's very, I think it's correct statement to say it's very similar to the electronic meeting for the Board of Supervisors, just with the Planning Commission, obviously, rather than the Board of Supervisors. Right. So if y'all are in agreement, our next step for that particular one is we would put it on the, if the Planning Commission desires, we could put that on the October Planning Commission agenda item for approval. And the Planning Commission would adopt that particular policy.
Yeah, the resolution.
Adopt that particular resolution at the next meeting, if in agreement. Just to review it briefly, you're still required to have a quorum present at the meeting. So 3 of y'all would have to be present at the meeting, but it would allow, under certain circumstances, as outlined in the policy, it would allow others to meet remotely.
I like that it limits it to a certain number and that there has to be a reason, it has to be a valid reason, medical reason or some other thing. So I think that's a good thing.
That's by statute. Given the recent situation with the pandemic and difficulty with holding meetings, there have been proposals to make further amendments, but this is what's in effect now, and if it's adopted before something else comes along, that this tracks the statute exactly. As an aside, the continuity of government ordinance is still in effect. It expires, I think it's October 6th. And the September meeting cycle for the Board of Supervisors, they will be considering readoption of that ordinance as well. So this policy, even though you're considering it for normal times, right, will not necessarily have to kick in until we get past the disaster.
I don't know when they'll know when that is.
Well,
I mean, honestly,
that's a good point.
Take to get them.
Well, it all makes perfect sense, and flexibility, which I like. Again, that's when we get to multiple times. But we'll put that on with the commission's encouragement. We'll go ahead and put that on the October agenda.
Yes.
In consensus of the board, yes. Yeah, commission, yes.
Okay. I'm getting nods.
Okay. Perfect. We will put that on the agenda for the October meeting.
Okay. Zoning text amendments.
Yes. Really, we were able to do one of the two, and I just I have done this. Staff has done some additional research on the zoning text amendments pertaining to additional dwellings on a single lot, or further defining garage/apartments, further defining guest houses, and further defining what somewhat of a new term to me anyway, alternative dwelling units, or IDUs. With that being said, I was in no way prepared to bring any draft language to you, and I apologize, but I think I just need one more month this is much more complicated than our next zoning. In my opinion, it's much more complicated than the next zoning text amendment that we're going to discuss. So with that being said, I am not prepared to further discuss that particular zoning text amendment associated with additional dwellings on a single lot. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. But I do fully anticipate to have some draft language, at least for discussion, at the October meeting. I've gotten some good examples, but just not had the opportunity to fully execute them. Let's put it that way.
do think it's something we need to deal with because we are getting more and more people that are looking for a house where they can then have either another family member that's gonna take care of them, or they can hire people that are gonna live there to take care of them. You know, they don't necessarily want to do the same house.
Sure.
So we're getting a lot more of those. I'd say, 3 within the last 3 weeks. So.
Yes, and a lot of that, you're exactly right, and that's direct result of, you know, not global shifting, but, you know, USA shifting and elderly parents, and also the pandemic. I mean, we've gotten the direct results of, hey, son's moving home, but son's not moving into the house, or daughter's moving home, but daughter's not moving into the house. We need something done, and there is some flexibility for mother-in-law suites in the agricultural zone. 70-some-odd% of the Rockbridge County is zoned agricultural. So we do have some flexibility for mother-in-law suites. Current ordinance does not provide for duplexes in an agricultural zone, but we really determine the duplex versus a mother-in-law suite, if you will, as means of access, means of ingress and egress through the main door of the house. And so we do have some flexibility on that. But I agree with your statement, absolutely.
Okay, then we're looking at the
yes. So as reported last month, the country club is currently the one country club we have in Rockbridge County is the Lexington Golf and Country Club. They are located in a residential zoning district. Let me see if I can share. Might be beneficial. Yeah, I can share my screen. One sec, please. So I'd just like to go over the location of the Lexington Golf and Country Club. Some of it's in the city, while the majority of it is located in Rockbridge County in a residential zoning district. With that being said, bear with me here. All right, so these are the golf course parcels here, outlined in blue. With that being said, let me throw my zoning on. Again, they're still outlined in blue there. Let me close this, make this a little bit bigger. And so what we found ourselves in is the golf course and the surrounding area, the golf course and the country club facilities themselves are located in a residential zone. Most of the activities predate zoning itself. Certainly the golf course does. I think it was developed in late 60s. With that being said, it's problematic for any future growth plans, you know, to include expansion of footprints, increase of use, that type of thing. So what we have proposed is to go through the public process of amending the text associated with the residential zoning district, not only to allow golf courses as defined, but also we started looking at our definition of golf courses, and it's very similar to golf courses, you know, throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, the definition. However, that definition did not include other amenities such as dining facilities, tennis courts, swimming pools, lounges, retail sales, all that type of stuff. So then we started focusing on other definitions. Some localities call it a club. Some of them do call it a country club. We have a definition of a lodge, or excuse me, a club/lodge. So I somewhat wanted to get away from the club and truthfully call it a country club. That there's some connotations associated with it, but the proposals, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen, stop sharing this. And this is slightly different. The ones that I've handed out today are slightly different. Bear with me a moment. All right, everyone should be able to see this. And I do realize I have a misspelling of county clubs in the purpose and intent. Mr. McLaughlin pointed that out. I apologize. I just write county too many times a day and automatically type that, I believe. So as always, it's presented in anything that would be removed or X'd out of the current ordinance is struck through, and then anything in red is proposed language. So we found it unusual second sentence that in the purpose of the statement of intent that these regulations for the district are designed to stabilize and protect essential characteristics of the district, to promote and encourage sustainable, suitable environment for residents. And it currently says, and to prohibit all activities of a commercial nature. I believe I think even under the current ordinance, that's problematic because we allow for private schools, we allow for nursing homes, we allow for continued care retirement communities, and those are somewhat commercial in nature. And so it's sort of in conflict already. So staff's recommendation is to change the wording of that sentence to strike out prohibit all and to add limit activities of commercial nature. And then we go on to say uses related, and this is a proposed statement in red, uses related to non-resident development should be designed to increase the vitality and attractiveness of this district as a living environment. Then everything else is the same until you get to what non-residential development we're particularly talking about, and that would be golf courses and country clubs. I apologize for misspelling there. Currently, let me scroll down. Currently, we do not, again, the issue at hand is currently we do not allow for golf courses or country clubs as a permitted use or a use by special exception in a residential zoning district. Again, this is problematic for the existing Lexington Golf and Country Club with any future expansion. So what we would like to do is we have golf courses defined. I don't think there is any need to redefine golf courses, but we do think it would be beneficial to further define country clubs. And I'd like to just take a second to read that. This is slightly different. The intent's the exact same thing, but it's slightly different than what was provided in your package. So the current definition would read a nonprofit membership organization formed for recreational purposes, which must include a clubhouse and a golf course, and may include driving ranges, practice areas, associated buildings such as maintenance buildings and golf cart storage buildings. The facility may include other recreational activities such as swimming pools, tennis courts, and squash courts. Dining facilities, meeting rooms, lounges, retail sales may also be permitted for accessory uses. The facility may offer associated short-term rentals for the patrons of the club. Short-term rentals are limited to the requirements for density, minimum lot size, and are limited to this type of dwelling allowed in the underlying zoning district. And so that would be our draft language that staff would recommend to the Planning Commission to go to a public hearing to start we're in the process, a public process of amending it, but to formally advertise these proposed changes.
So when you're saying a patron of the club, is that just only members of the club, or will that include their guests as well? Patrons / guests of the club?
That is an excellent question. And so with that, I think I'm honestly going, and I looked this up the first time. So with that, bear with me here, and I'll give you a better definition than I can give you off the top of my head. Oops. I think the intent of it, so it is a customer, especially a regular one of a store, restaurant, or theater is number 2, and then a person who gives financial or other support to an organization, cause, or activity. And so that would, and the intent of it is not to limit it to membership only. The intent of it would be to allow for users of the golf course, users of the facility to stay at the facility during events, if that's what happens.
Or spectators, if
Or,
it was a golf tournament.
yes.
So with the last 2 sentences, is it tailored specifically to what's upcoming to the Lexington Golf and Country Club? Because it seems to me those sentences, you're already defining what a country club is, and then most of them don't have short-term rentals. That seems to be something that's tailored directly to what's coming. And
Not necessarily. So we have had some preliminary conversations with Lexington Golf and Country Club, and it seems like it is a new, I don't want to use the word bad, but a new trend for golf courses to have what they're calling more or less a 4-bedroom complex, if you will, with one centralized kitchen. So if you have a foursome, that you can then stay out there. They gave us examples. The gentleman that I was working with gave us examples of different facilities across Commonwealth. I think the ones, I can't remember what it is, but it's in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, next to the Boar's Head, and they do have associated short-term lodging. So it's not directly as a result of the request from the country club itself, but it seems like they did want that flexibility.
That it does make sense, because you want people coming in, brings people in to play golf, and that gives them a place to stay. And it's not so much that it's going to take away from hotels and other lodging.
And it's extremely limited area for this particular one. Of course, this is a countywide ordinance. This is a little bit more unusual because we only have one elephant in the room right now, if you will, and that's obviously propelling this conversation forward.
At some point, they talked about National Bridge, you know, there's going to be a golf course like that for National Bridge, and there's the state parking lot, you don't know what may happen out there.
Sure, and I will note that the current draft, and Ms. Huffman and I talked about this today, the current text amendments is only for the residential zoning district. It would not allow for an agricultural transitional. It would not allow for an agricultural zone. With that being said, we could obviously, if and when that need arises, we could, or if y'all choose, we could obviously include those zoning districts now. And there was a golf course that was actually designed and somewhat laid out for the Natural Bridge area. And David, you partially constructed in the late 80s, somewhere around there, but for whatever reason, that was not, the whole entire thing did not come to fruition.
I'd like to go ahead and get this rolling, I guess, with everybody's input.
On this particular one, we would need a motion to take it to public hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. With that, I would like some flexibility on the staff level for the last couple sentences. I'm not so sure. I think it's very important that we put the dwelling unit in. Obviously, we don't want to get into a multifamily complex. We don't want to get into a hotel situation. You know, the intent is for it to blend in. And again, the statement of intent to make it more vital and attractiveness for the district as a living environment. With that being said, in rethinking this, it may just say, rather than short-term rentals are limited to the requirements for the density, minimum lot size, and are limited to the type of dwelling allowed in the underlying district. That may just be modified to must comply with the underlying district, because there's road standards that I started thinking about. There's different things that go into this that I think are important for if we do have a development that adhere to all regulations of the underlying zoning district, while allowing short-term rentals.
Should that be a standalone item then, short-term rentals, separate and distinct from country clubs?
Well, we do, and that's.
I mean, I don't see.
So the other parts of the ordinance are defined as short-term rentals, define what short-term rentals are and where it's located and where it's not. Obviously, we've gone through several special exceptions. The only short-term rental that is currently allowed in a residential zoning district is a bed and breakfast homestay, and that's by special exception. We've talked about this, and I think that is different than developing a whole full-blown country club and having some sort of lodging component to it as a short-term rental. I don't think, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's apples to apples to say, hey, this single family dwelling can't do a short-term rental unless they live on the property, unless they're there on the property while that renting activity is going on. In my opinion, it's different than developing a whole country club with dining facilities, golf courses, everything else, and then allowing, I don't think it's, there may be a perceived conflict there, but I don't think it's a bona fide conflict between the ordinances. Does that address your question?
Yeah, I think so. Think about it a little bit.
I think what we were talking about was it's not really being looked at as a standalone provision. We have separate definitions and authorization for that. So what Chris and I talked about was whether to include it in the definition or to give it a separate definition. And then if you do that, it becomes a separate something you have to permit or authorize for special exception or do something with. But if the idea is to authorize it only if it's part of a country club, then it seems that it should be included in the definition of country club, so that when you authorize a country club to be in this district or that district, then you're also allowing these short-term rentals associated with the club, but not for other things. If it's standalone,
Right, and if
you're
it's
looking
standalone,
at-
then you can get anybody coming in, and they're not gonna worry about the golf course. This is for the patrons of the country club
exactly.
that will be utilizing the
So, and that's not to say that you all can't consider other things. It's just, I'm just explaining our thought process related to this.
And I think what you're saying is, somebody's at the country club, they own a house, they're here seasonally, or they leave for the summer months and they want to rent it out to somebody, for weekends or whatever, they may say, well, that's not fair. You're letting them do short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And here's my house right near the golf club. Why can't I rent mine out short-term?
And my response to that would be because this is associated with the country club, it's not associated with the single family dwelling on an established lot and, that, so. And David, I had the exact same question.
Argument really works is if they're close to the country club.
That's what I'm saying. There's
Oh,
plenty
yeah.
of houses over there. We built
Directly
houses
behind
over
it.
there that have plenty of room for short-term rentals.
So I think that question probably will rise, through the, if and when this ever, that part of the, if and when this ever comes to fruition for this country club or any other future country club. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I believe it's defendable to say that, hey, this is a accessory use to the country club itself, and obviously the country club established, that the overall use of it is the country club itself.
So I make a motion then that we, what are we doing? I guess I'll put it out for public discussion, advertise for public input for a text amendment to the residential general district R1.
To include the changes of the statement intent and the proposed uses and country club definition.
So to include the statement of intent changes and to add the country club definition and add golf courses and country clubs.
Yes.
Residential general district.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a motion, second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank y'all.
And that leaves us, we have to have a motion for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Robert.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Thank y'all. Thank everybody.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, everybody. You all stay safe.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Hope all goes well.
And I can go ahead and leave, correct?